Can you guess which of these three celebrity couples have been married the longest? Is the answer A, B, or C? You have 7 seconds to give your answer. Time's up. The correct answer is letter B.
I thought you would like. I thought you would like that. Hello, 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 friends, family, friends of your marriage. We're friends of your marriage. He's giggling because of some of the questions. We're going to do something a little different today, and I'd like you, if you haven't already, get a piece of paper. Get some paper, something to write with. We're going to tell you more about it, but get something to write with, each of you, because we're going to try something a little different today. And we'd like you to participate in that. Besides, we invite you to join us in the chat to give us feedback, give us your comments. But he was kind of laughing. Of course, I don't know if you saw that. Which of those celebrity couples were married the longest? Were you surprised at the answer?
Not really.
Really? You thought it was the Osbournes? Yeah. Well, Denzel, they were right there.
Okay.
They beat him, I think, by about just a few months.
Okay.
And then Tina Turner and her husband. But the reason that I thought that was interesting is because there are so many people that are thinking that, marriage is dead, or, people are not getting married as much. But more and more people are not only getting married, but staying married. Mm-hmm. And do you know that a lot of times celebrities have an impact on what people do? So when they see a lot of divorces going on, they think that, everybody's doing it, so it's easier to get a divorce. And we are fighting for love. So we want to encourage you. We're going to be posting more information that's going to encourage you to not only get married, but to stay married. Not only stay married, but be happily married. And that you can overcome some things. We've been going through. We're going to tell you about some of the things that we've been learning with this particular series, where the topic is trust. Mm-hmm. And we're still talking about trust. But the reason that you need the paper and pencil, we're going to tell you about in a little bit. I'm Dr. Margaret Jamal. My
Dr.
husband.
Aaron Jamal.
We had a week. Didn't we have a week?
Seems like we have a week every week.
We have a week every week. I mean, a lot of stuff has been going on this week. I tell you what, when you talk about trust.
Season of weeks.
Season of weeks. So that we actually have something that we can apply to trust. Trusting God, trusting people, trusting...
trusting each other. Especially when you're talking about the area of finance, right? Mm-hmm. One of the things that I noticed about the shows that we've recently had is that there's a lot of feedback when it comes to talking about trusting people with your account, the money, spending, with or without you, all those kind of things. There's a lot of talk about those things, and I know we're gonna address it probably in one of the more the coming shows, but I really want to address the fact that we are each of us, this beautiful lady over here, and even me, a child of God.
Indeed.
And if you began to think about what you're saying as though you are talking about or even making a comment about a child of God, you would probably filter what you're saying a little differently.
I know. So in other words, for example, we were just talking with a couple about this. One of the things, as far as what I've been changing, and I'm not saying I'm perfect at it, but it's like what I wanted my husband to be is when I begin to speak, instead of saying, you know what, you don't pay any attention to me. I start saying, you pay so much attention to me. You love me. You love me more than anybody else and anything else. And make that a prayer. We have been speaking, the life and death is in the tongue. And we need to begin to speak those things that we want instead of declaring those things that we see. And it doesn't always have to be the way we think it is. Anyway, there's a different logic. We think differently, and that's okay.
Right, because we don't necessarily have to think the same about everything. We may have a different approach to
Yeah,
something or
yeah,
different method of doing things, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we can't work in harmony. And what we
yes.
don't want to do, we talk about Satan in terms of him being, when we were talking about temptation, when we talk
Mm,
about how it is that he tempted even Jesus, right? Or at least tried to tempt Jesus. But the reality of it is he's the accuser.
mm.
That's what he does.
And we don't want to be
We
like
don't want to
Satan,
add to his stuff, right?
right? We want to
Because
be on his team,
no, not in
accusing
any
each
way
other.
whatsoever. And the
Yeah,
reality of it is that sometimes we unwittingly do that.
we accuse
Yeah,
instead of uplifting.
yeah. So we have to be
Because that's
careful.
easier to do.
We
It's
got,
easier to say you didn't do this, or you always do. You always, you don't,
yeah,
you're not giving me enough attention. You don't give me enough attention. But instead, we could instead say what we want. You give me
hmm
so much attention. I really appreciate the attention. Even if he doesn't think that he's doing it at that time, he's gonna be saying, "Oh, okay." And then you get people to live up to the expectations.
which is true. I
It's
mean,
not,
this
listen, it's not manipulation.
no,
It's declaration.
it's a target. It's a
Absolutely.
target to reach for if you're not there.
Absolutely, it definitely is. And we said to get something to write with. I just wanted to get into some of these questions
Yeah.
that
Okay.
we do. Again, we encourage you. This is Friends of Your Marriage, and we want to encourage you why it is so important for you to build around, build friends of your marriage. One of the things that we've learned in counseling and supporting other people is that when people decide that they're going to separate or get divorced, they always have someone else in their ear that have been giving them negative information
hmm
that were not friends of their marriage. I mean, think about that.
Yeah. Negative
People,
chatter.
exactly. People
Yeah.
don't just leave their marriage by themselves. Someone comes into agreement when they get pushed to that point. Now, there are situations where there's
Yeah.
abuse, but I'm talking about right today's society. It's too easy for somebody to say we've grown out of each other.
Sure.
We're growing apart. What is that? What does that mean? We're growing apart.
Well, I don't know what it means when it is you say you're growing apart. If it is that you're not doing something the way you were doing it before, maybe that's just part of the changing
Yeah.
that your relationship is going through. And if it's a change that you don't like or a change that you'd like to be reversed in some kind of way, then again, there are influences that you can do because that change that's happening, you're part of it.
That's right. That's right.
You
And
know?
and not always accusing and blaming the other person. If you're growing apart, you can grow together as well.
Yeah.
There, I just really believe that if we took the time to think and to forgive,
hmm
many of the divorces that happen just wouldn't happen.
It's like people saying things that are, like, well, I'm not as close to God as I used to be. But God didn't
Mm.
move, so what happened?
See, you see what I'm saying? It's like sometimes we just don't take the time to think, but we're listening to that negative chatter. We're
hmm
listening to people say that, if you don't like the situation, then get out of it. It's like we come in with a prenup already in the back of our heads
hmm
with, and I just believe that we can work it. We can work it out. We can work it out. Just do things my way.
Yeah, right. And that's part of the whole thing. We're so stuck on trying to do things our way, we don't necessarily know or have the ear to hear that maybe there's another way to do it as well.
Okay, so check this out. So tell me what you think about this. Okay.
Okay.
So my husband hasn't seen this either. So check this out. Okay. So now each of you get something to write with and be ready to play our new couples game, Who Knows Best. So just paper and pencil, just regular paper and pencil. It doesn't have to be anything elaborate, right? Okay. And so then what comes next? Then when you get ready, you're going to answer the question first the way you would answer it. And then on the other side, you're going to put the answer the way you think your spouse would answer it. Then we're going to compare answers. So this is an exercise that we used to do with couples some time ago, and we just want to reintroduce it. And we're going to introduce something else too that our couples asked us to look at, and that is giving away prizes for people who have. We have some in mind. So What am I talking about? Okay, so let's try.
Finances. She didn't tell me how much that was going to cost you.
I didn't tell him how much it was going to cost. Oh, that's that other financial question.
Yeah.
We had a discussion.
Okay.
Okay, so here, let's start with the first question. Which one, and again, we invite you to join us in the chat and give your feedback as well. Thank you so much. Okay, so which one is the better listener when you discuss important issues? I mean, we have an answer already. Which one is the better listener when you discuss important issues? Now, first, I'm going to put my answer on the left, who I think is the better listener. And then I'm going to put my answer on the right, who I think my husband thinks is the better listener. Okay, so you could either think it's the wife, A, B, the husband, C, neither are great listeners, or D, both listen equally well. Okay, we already have a answer by the right. They say A, the wife is the better listener. Now, and that's the man who said that. Look at him. Look at him. Okay. Did you write your answers down, darling?
I did.
Okay. Who else said? And let's see what else. So this is husband. Okay. All right. So hopefully you wrote it down, and then we're going to compare in just a little bit. Okay. Do you want to compare? Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. So this is how we're going to do it. And let's see what he put down. Okay. All right. So I'm going to let you go first. A, what was your answer? Who do you think is the better listener?
I put down D.
D. Oh, equally? That we listen equally?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And who
for me?
And what do you think?
That was my answer.
That was your answer for you.
Okay.
And what do you think I put down?
A.
He's right. I put down A because I'm the better listener. That's right. So what happens is this: he gets the point because he guessed correctly, and I did it because I put down that he was. Yeah, I put down that he was going to answer A for himself, but he did D. So then he gets the point. Are y'all following me now? Get it? So he answered correctly for me. So the name of this game is Who Knows Best. So does he know me best or do I know him best? So far, he knows me best. All right. Are you following along? How do we do? Let's see what we got here in the ship. Chad said Sheldon. And what did I said? That wasn't my answer. Somebody else. Okay. And they're talking about. They said that was their answer to Denzel.
Oh, okay.
They're we're like way behind. Okay, I got you. Okay, so let's get with. And he said Sheila says A, wife. Okay. All right. So, and we're going to discuss even what those answers are about as time permits. Okay. But now you get it. You get the flow? Mm-hmm. Okay, you ready to try another one?
If you like.
Okay. And we're going to see why he thinks that we listen both very well. But that's good. There's nothing wrong with that. You want to read the next question, darling?
If your spouse won $1 million lottery, mm-hmm. would you be concerned about it changing your relationship?
And the answers are A, not at all. Now, this is your answer first. Mm-hmm. Not at all. I might be a little concerned with that much money. C, I would have serious concern that we would disagree about how to spend it. D, absolutely. That much money could lead to a, what did I say? What is that? It could lead to something strange, right? Hold on.
A divorce.
Oh, a divorce. That much money could lead to a divorce. Now, I know you might think that that's strange, but some people, you'd be surprised at how many people think that it, and that it has led to divorce, actually.
Sure.
So what do you think? If your spouse won $1 million, I'm going to put my answer down, and then I'm going to put down what I think my husband would say. change. Now the question is, if your spouse
was-
won $1 million, if your spouse won $1 million, now both of you,
Right.
would you be concerned about it changing your relationship?
Mhm.
Okay. All right. And so let's see what we have. And put your answer in the chat. You can put your, which one you have the answer to as well, and what you think your spouse is going to say. But in the meantime, so you see how this rolls, because next time we're going to have couples in the studio. But
Okay.
now we're just introducing it. So
Okay.
you first.
No, you had me go
Oh,
first
okay.
next time.
So first, I thought I put my answer B.
Okay.
So what is that? I said
I might be a little concerned with that much
with that much money,
for
$1 million.
yourself. Okay.
I know that these are some things we're going to need to discuss later.
Mhm.
That's my answer. But I thought my husband would say A.
Okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And what did you say?
I did say A for myself, but I also said A for you as well. So I did not get that one.
You didn't?
No.
Okay. Well, I knew you, and you didn't know me on that one. Okay. So he really wants to discuss this.
Mhm.
Let's go to the chat and see what kind of chatter we have. Let's see. Let's say both A on 2. We both said A. Not at all. Okay, let's see who said that. Okay. They both said A.
Okay.
That's what they would answer, and that's what the other person would answer.
Okay.
And let's see, who do we have here? Said my husband would say A.
That's what Sheila says.
Okay. And what would you say? You tell us a little bit. And then we'll see. Alyssa says C. Now, what was C? Wait a minute. Let's see what C was again. She said, my husband would say A. Let us know what you would say. And she said, C.
I would have serious concerns that we would disagree about how to spend it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Now, can we just take a little pause on that one? Because I think I got some explaining to do.
Well, yeah, I'd like you to do some explaining, but I want to say, let me explain mine as first, because the question was whether or not it would change the relationship.
Right.
And fortunately, we've had a season, if you will, where things were plentiful enough that I believe the fact that we had more than what we needed to survive, it didn't really change our relationship. It enhanced our ability to do things for one another and for those it is that we care about, even for those it is that we didn't know, right? So it didn't change our relationship because we are givers. And I think both of us enjoy the other person being happy.
Yeah.
And so I don't see a lottery winning changing that dynamic on my part, as far as the way I see things. But tell me why it is that you'd have concerns. Let's get into that.
Okay, and then we'll go to the chat too. So dealing with specifically the question, I might be a little concerned with that much money.
Okay.
So even like now, I feel like there is a level of accountability with us, which is it's fine. It's fine. And you said we're givers.
Yes, we are.
And so my thing, as far as being a giver is concerned, is I have a concept that first off the top, 10% is going to be donated.
Okay.
Off the top.
Fine.
And it's not that I necessarily, that's just my thought.
Okay.
And so at least 10%.
Okay.
Maybe even, $1 million, that's a lot.
Sure.
I would like to, think about in terms of investing, hiring some people, giving people jobs and stuff like that. And so that's my thought.
Which is what we did, though.
Right. But I don't know that would necessarily be your thought. You might want to invest in some real estate and get some, and then again, I might want to go on a spending spree because, I like Hobby Lobby. I want to get a new house and new furniture.
Which you did before.
Right. And so I said I would be concerned.
It didn't change.
Well,
it didn't change.
It didn't change. Okay. You say so.
You tell me how it did then.
Well, I'm not saying
I'm talking
permanent.
about the relationship.
the relationship.
I'm not talking about attitude. I'm talking about relationship.
Okay.
Did the relationship change?
I'm glad you said that. See, and so here's another example of the difference in our
listening well.
No, you listen very well, sweetheart. But a difference in our logic. Because to me, how we relate is relationship. And you called it attitude. And which is fine. But to me, if your attitude changes, that's also an indication of your relationship changing. To it, and I'm not saying that it changes permanently, but changing the dynamic to the point that maybe now we're discussing, maybe now we're kind of conflicting about how we're spending the money more because we have $1 million than we were doing before when we had less. That was my perception when I looked at that question.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
okay,
does that make sense? Does that make sense?
I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
If that's what you're asking me.
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. And so I'm sure, at least for me, I would want to have a certain amount of money that I could spend any way I wanted to.
And you did. So I'm still, I guess I'm still not in agreement that was our relationship, regardless of whether or not you say it's the way that we relate to one another. Because I think that even the couples, please chime in on this if you think so. I believe that often, regardless of whether or not you're talking about finances or whatever, you can say something or discuss something and actually discuss things in a disagreement. Disagreement is like a chord that is still harmony, but there's some dissonance in the chord. Okay. So the chord sounds a little richer, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's not part of the same song. So our relationship is still sound. Yeah. We're still in the same song, but we got a little dissonance there because you're doing things a little differently than I understood we were going to do, and we're talking it through. That doesn't change our relationship. Still in the same relationship, still in the same song, still loving each other, in my opinion. Okay.
I believe that. I agree. Love you. All that love. And they said maybe, what did she say? Maybe maybe you both get $10,000 to spend however you want.
You do not know my wife. That is not going to do it.
With $1 million, are you kidding?
So let's clarify a couple of things. If we're talking about $1 million, half of it is going to go to IRS to begin with. So we're down to $500,000. Okay.
Well, it depends on how we manage it.
Well, we're going to have to manage it with an accountant that can do something up front because they're going to take the money right off the top unless it is that you come to them with something with an accountant. Okay. But anyway, so let's just assume that we're going to have a little less than the $1 million to begin with because there is, of course, taxes. Okay. All right. So I'll go as far as saying maybe we have 600 instead of the 10, right? Instead of the $1 million. Out of $600,000, if I said to her, you got 10,000 to do whatever you want to, she would go off.
You can't believe it. I'm just thinking about it.
Go off.
Cray.
No. So I wouldn't even think about a boundary like that. However, I would want us to share the goals and things that is still, this is not about her asking for permission or me asking for permission. As she said, she'd like to have X amount of dollars to do what she wants to do. I think it's helpful if we come to an understanding about what that want is so that we can support one another in acquiring or pursuing that particular want. Because whatever it is that you wind up with more, there are challenges that are going to follow as well.
I agree.
That can get in the way, intercept, change the dynamic that you hadn't anticipated when you set that goal.
I agree.
So again, I think it's important that we share what those wants are to the point that we can actually make a plan together and support one another.
Okay.
Now, what about you?
Yeah, I agree that we plan. I still have my answer though. But let's go to the next question.
You didn't really explain your concern you said that you thought that there would be a change in the way that we relate to one another, but you didn't say, okay, because only regarding the. Would you read the question again?
Sure. Okay. If your spouse won $1 million lottery, would you be concerned about it changing your relationship?
So changing the relationship is a little bit more than relating to your relationship or relating in the relationship. in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
You don't think so? Changing the relationship.
Mm-hmm. Well, okay. So, in my opinion, and again, okay. So this is a great example. This again, the difference in logic.
Sure.
So to me, I didn't say it would be a permanent change, but I think that it would change the way we relate to each other because now, right now in our relationship, finances is just not a big factor.
True.
Okay, but it used to be.
It has been in
It
different
has been
seasons, but when it became the example talked about a plentiful season, when you're talking about $1 million,
right. I
you're
think
talking
it's
about a plentiful season. And if you
okay.
liken our circumstances and the way we related to one another, you talk about spending sprees. I think if you were honest, the one that actually embellished or worked towards sprees was more you than myself.
That's right. And I am going to be. You said you think if I was honest.
Okay, so
Did you hear
fine
that? Did you hear him say if I was honest?
about this because I'm dealing with a comparison, and we have to be careful with comparison
But
scenarios.
did you think I was
So
going to
this
be
is a
anything
different
but honest?
this is a different scenario when we're talking about you know changing the relationship.
Okay.
If again, I'm asking you if you were using that as an example of
Hmm.
how our relationship would be because we had what we needed and some. So tell me how it is that increase changed our relationship.
Oh, you talking about the $1 million?
No, I'm talking about what we had. We had more than what we needed and then some.
Oh, you mean that time when we had the
The
dim sum?
season, you know it.
It didn't change. It changed our relationship. I mean, it was a good way to change our relationship because
Did it change the relationship or just enhance or open the door for more things to
that's
happen?
what I'm talking about. The logic.
I'm
See, for
asking you.
to
I'm
me, to
asking.
me, an enhancement is a change.
That's a change.
Yeah, if it's
Okay.
enhanced, it's a change.
Okay then. All right.
Okay.
So and again, we talking about different scenarios, right? Not trying to
Mhm.
win a case. I'm not trying to be right here. I look at adding cream to my coffee as enhancing the coffee, but it's still coffee.
Yeah, but to me, it enhanced it, but it changed it because at first I was drinking it with less cream. Now I have more cream. So that was a change for me.
Okay. Okay. What you guys think?
I'm,
So we're talking about a lot of cream. We're talking about $1 million.
right. We're talking about a lot of cream. But there again, that is an example of the fact that we can have different ways of thinking and we have different lives. Listen, people, we've been married for 38 years and we're happily married.
I don't
But
know.
we don't agree with
We count
everything.
differently too because it's actually 39
It's
years.
actually 39 years. And we don't agree with everything. I mean,
I was
he and
there.
I,
Were you there?
I was there.
Okay.
I'm glad I was there. There are a lot of things that we think differently, but we want to encourage you that if you are friends of your marriage, you can still have a happy marriage.
Yes.
A lot of this stuff we
Yes.
we end up laughing at. But here's the next. Oh, wait, I think we have a comment before we move on to the next question. Um, what's this comment here? It said,
That's a whole lot of cream.
a whole lot of cream. Indeed, it is.
Absolutely.
Indeed, it is. And so, okay, let's go to the next question here. I'm going to write it down, and then we're going to see how well we did with each other.
If you found condoms in your spouse's pocket, how would you respond? A, I would ask about the condoms. B, I would ignore the condoms to keep the peace. C, I would throw the condoms away and hope that my spouse mentions them. And then D, I would I think it's look for signs, right? Look for signs that my
Mhm.
spouse is unfaithful before mentioning the condoms. Okay?
Okay, everybody, look at that. Marinate on that question for a minute, but try to say what first pops into your mind. I'm going to give my answer, and I'm going to give the answer that I think my husband would give, and you do the same. You give your answer on one side, and then you write down the answer that you think your spouse would give. Just a reminder that this is really the way your paper should look. You're not looking at each other's paper. You put down the answer. You put your answer on one side. You put your spouse's answer on the other. Okay, yours first, and then your spouse's answer on the other. And let's see, we already have a comment with the chat. Or did you want to, let's see what we have. Okay, I would assume they're for up. Wait a minute. Let's see. He said, wait a minute. I would assume
They're for us.
okay.
All right, that's not really one of the choices, but what is that really?
Yeah. So
He
let's
said E. Instead of A, B, C, or D, he said E. I would assume they're for us.
Okay, E. So
Okay.
but E said look for well E. Okay. So which one of these four close resembles if those were your choices? But we'll let you say what you want to say right there. You don't want to play. Right. Okay. So well, I mean, you really answered. So apparently, or you might still say something. So let's see what else we have. We have A.
Says A.
I would ask about the condoms. Is that your answer? Is that you think what your spouse would say? That's your answer? And let's see what else we have.
Sandy says E. She'd assume we're going to get it on tonight. So we agree.
Okay. So, but Cindy said E. Now, if y'all agree, is that what you wrote down or is that what you agreed with? I'm really curious about that.
Definitely A. Now, is that, again, you talking about her or you talking about you? So make it a little more clear so we know which one of the sides you're actually marking.
Right. Which one? That's your answer. And what do you think your spouse would answer to? So, again, we're putting this in the chat, but we'd like to know what did you write as well. And he said, and for people, I'm just going to remind you what the question is. And we would prefer that you actually answered one of them, because keep in mind that this is for the sake of discussion.
Okay. If you found condoms in your spouse's pocket, how would you respond? Okay. A, I would ask about the condoms. B, I would ignore the condoms to keep the peace. C, I would throw the condoms away and hope that my spouse mentions them. Or D, I would look for signs that my spouse is unfaithful before mentioning the condoms. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So,
and what's your answer?
You want mine now?
Yeah.
Oh, well, for you or for me?
For you
My
first.
answer for me is A.
You would ask about the condoms?
Oh, absolutely. And for you, I had A.
Okay. I said the same thing.
Okay.
I would ask about them.
Oh, we have a talk.
Where them condoms come from? And who paid for those?
And what are you planning about the condoms?
So, wait a minute. What do we have here? Definitely A. Both of them said A. And we came to our answers separately. Okay, she said they came to their answers separately.
Okay.
They both made up a DE. Okay. All right. Great. Now, these questions, again, we like you to now see how many, because there were 3 questions, how many were you able to guess that your spouse said? How much were you able to guess your spouse's answer? So in other words, in the column, this is what I did. If you can see. Can you see? So A, I got wrong, but I got the number 2 and number 3 correct.
Mm-hmm. So you got 2 right then.
I got 2 right.
I'm the same. I got 1 and 3 right.
So you got 2?
I got 2 as well.
Well, and the name of the game is Who Knows Best. So in this particular situation, we were tied, right? So what about you couples?
Who knows who best?
Who knows who best? Now let me just tell you why this is important. We're going to have other questions as we move forward. There are 2 things that we think are important as a couple to remain happily married. Mm-hmm. Because there's a lot of times when you are going through this honeymoon season and you think it's going to be that way all the time. Mm-hmm. And then when it changes And it does change because we change.
Mm-hmm.
People get disillusioned. But one of the, I would say, secrets, and the reason I say it's a secret because a lot of times people don't realize it until we have the discussion, is to learn how to explore your partner. There was a time when we were together earlier on when I thought, I know him, I know exactly what he's going to do and all that kind of stuff. But what I realized is those were assumptions.
Mm-hmm.
It was because this was my perception. I was looking at our relationship and my husband through my own lens, and I figured that I knew him. And then when he began to quote unquote change, that's what I thought he was doing, was changing. We had one discussion, and he helped me to realize it's not that I'm changing. It's just that you didn't know that this was another side of me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we are changing. Don't get me
Mm-hmm.
wrong. We're always changing.
Mm-hmm.
But what he had pointed out to me, and I had to accept, and I began to explore more, is there's so many dimensions of each other.
Yes.
And if you begin to think that you know everything about your spouse, it is opening the door for the B word, boredom.
You say the B word. I would say discontent
and discontent. See?
and misunderstanding.
Yes.
Because both of those are very challenging for a relationship.
And that falls right into trust.
Mm-hmm.
Because you'll begin to think that you can't trust their responses. You begin to think, I can't trust you because you're not the person I thought you were.
Mm-hmm. I think that each of us, just like you're saying, as far as exploring is concerned, each of us have a complexity that's kind of like if you were to journey into a forest or some type of jungle, if you will, you could discover things each and every day and still not know everything is there, right? There's still more to find out about, more to experience, more that can happen. And even as you experience those things, there's changes that are happening that you don't know are happening that you then discover.
That's right.
So the same is true about your spouse, and the same is true about you. What I recognize, and even my friends, I'm talking about my closest friends that have known me for a long time, they gave me a heads up. You're not the same guy that you were before you met her. That much we can see. And that's not a bad thing. It's just acknowledging that each of us are impressing the other. And each of us, as a result of that impression from each other, are adapting, even going through reconsiderations of the way it is that we want to see ourselves. And that's not necessarily a bad thing in anybody's eyes, especially those it is that are friends of your marriage.
Yes.
Maybe those it is who weren't necessarily friends of your marriage see you as not being as much fun or easy to manipulate or easy to hang out with, but it's because your likes, your desires, the things it is that you want in your life are not the same.
I heard what you said. I agree.
Okay.
I agree. Here's some comments. I just want to share some chat comments.
Okay.
Say, I need a board like you guys have. That's right. And we're going to tell you how you can get the board and other prizes in just a little bit. Okay. You're going to get boards and all sorts of things. And we know each other pretty well, so we weren't surprised as we agreed with all three, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. That you know each other pretty well. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. We do need to explore this more clearly. That's good that you see that as well, because it's good to, like you said, to feel like you know each other. But I tell you what, listen to me. No matter how much you feel like you want to say be best friends or whatever, no one wants to feel like they are one-dimensional. I don't think that people even want to feel like someone knows everything about them. You want to have an air of mystery, of exploring. Even God says, seek my face. He didn't say you're going to know all of me. If we knew all about God, we would get to the point. Familiarity breeds contempt. And if a person feels like they just know you, like they say, I know you like a book, at some point, they're going to want to read a different book.
Well, my question is, maybe you need to read the book again, because you might
You might find a
you
different
probably
chapter.
fish you probably missed a couple of words or a couple of phrases or paragraphs in that book, that would change the outcome if you really read it again. But
Yeah.
again, I think there is. I think even like with people saying, I know you've been skimming through the book or something because you didn't see everything. we
Yeah.
we don't know our spouses in every aspect, but when we have those conversations, now I'm gonna tell you something.
Mm-hmm.
One of my, and she can definitely vouch for this as well. One of my tendencies when I would hear something from her is to say, "What does that look like?" And it
Yes.
wasn't a criticism at all. It was for me to have an understanding, a better description, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
a deeper description, clearer description about what she was proposing.
And what
Because
I mean.
yeah, because it's not necessarily what the first thing that comes to my mind.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, especially, I realized that sometimes what she's saying, I needed a GPS to find out what it was because it was so different from where I was in my
Mm-hmm.
thinking. It was like, oh, okay, so that is definitely different than I was thinking. And so it became more of a regular practice for me to ask, what does it look like?
Yeah.
So that I could have a better understanding of where she was coming from.
And to be a better friend of your marriage, you really, it's just a thought, for us, it's helped that we've learned to explore each other
Hmm.
more. And speaking of friends of your marriage, I, we've played this a number of times. I really want you to pay attention to these principles of friends of your marriage. It's not just the way other people are seeing your marriage and supporting it, but how you should feel towards your own self and your spouse.
Hmm.
We had to travel the world of our past to realize it was harder before cause we weren't by each other's side. Maybe it took a little longer to know together we're stronger. That's the way our love survived. Now we've gone through the fire. Love will take us higher, higher than it was before we went through love and war. See the promised land, walking hand in hand. Now that we can understand what we were fighting for, fighting for love, love, fighting for love.
For those that did not know, that was our son, Elijah Jamal, in terms of the vocals and the song itself. He wrote the song and produced it.
It's on Broken Melodies. Get the whole song and listen to it. It's a very powerful song when you listen to it, but it does express how we feel. That's why we do what we do. We are fighting for love. For real, it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart when we hear about, especially people we know, breaking up. More than not, when people find themselves separating or divorcing, they've been blindsided. They've been sucker punched. They were like, I had no idea that he felt this way. I had no idea that she felt this way. There were warning signs that they just didn't see. And I really think that a lot of that comes with you losing or not having the perspective of exploring each other, of paying attention. To me, I say listen to learn and learn to listen. I
I
mean,
would add to
really.
that as well the aspect of recognizing this one that you're exploring is a
Mhm.
child of God. And so have a certain amount of reverence for this person as
Mm.
well, and recognizing God doesn't make mistakes.
Mhm.
And so whereas you're seeing flaws or seeing things it is that you want to change, if you're recognizing this is God's child that has been entrusted unto you, and you're still finding something wrong with who God made that person,
Mhm.
I'd rethink that again and maybe re-examine whether or not what you're seeing is not quite what you think it is.
Right, and it doesn't mean that you can't disagree.
No,
But
of course you can disagree.
that's something my mother has said that has really helped, and we've shared this together. She said, "Look for God in it."
Mm,
I begin to look for God in my husband. I begin to look for God in our relationship.
mhm,
And in fact, this is one of the main reasons that we go here, where we get into the Word.
Now it's time to explore Bible based answers to real life issues with questions that help get a better understanding about the Bible verse for our featured topic. You can find the interactive lesson in assignments at idometoo.org. Click to access this week's assignments, and then go to number 2 to complete Bible study lesson, and click Go to Interactive Bible Study. Click Start Course, and then just scroll through the lesson and get started. Now, let's get started with the Bible verse and study questions.
Oh, yeah. We're going to always do this, and strongly believe that the Word of God that says to meditate, this helps you to actually meditate. That means digest. I heard someone the other day said that they're into the scriptures, they read the scriptures and everything like that, which is great. It's definitely better than not. But meditating on it, which is what the scriptures tell us to do, helps you to internalize it so that it really means something to you, that you begin to apply it in your life.
Exactly. And at times you have to divide the word in order to apply it. You got to break it down. And truthfully, there is opportunity there to have those discussions with one another as to how it applies to both of you. Don't use the opportunity as a way of beating each other up with scriptures, because we came from that a long time ago as well. Again, it helps. I don't know. For me, it helps dramatically. Just recognizing that the person it is that you're sharing this with, the person you're having the discussion with, it's God's child. Okay,
Yeah.
On both sides, it's God's child, and so you're not trying to exercise, your abilities to be right all the time. You're trying to come to a better understanding at how it is that you're seeing what God is saying, and then talking together about how you can apply those things to your lives. And it's not only intriguing what that conversation looks like, but sometimes you'll reach a point where you both, discover, wow, this is kind of hard.
Yeah.
And then you can actually recognize together that you're struggling with that particular thing. And it's not a guilt thing or something to be ashamed of. It's something that you acknowledge, wow, this is a hard concept for us to deal and apply to our lives. And so you can help each other in doing that, and even can open yourselves up. God, teach me how to do that.
Come on.
Help me how to play that, Lord. I don't really know exactly how to make that, make my life in accordance with that. We believe you that it's good for us. We just don't know exactly how to do that.
And you can ask God.
Absolutely.
And speaking about wanting to be right, I have to admit, I did not like not being right. When we would get into discussions and he was like, yeah, but you said this. And I'm like, okay, I said that, but I would try to turn it around. So it's like, but I did I say that? And I remember one time he was saying something about the tone that I was using with him. And I admit I have tones. And so to prove one day, we decided to record. I don't know if it was my thought or his idea to record. But when it was played back, right? And I listened to it because I was just going to be, the way it was. I was surprised at the tone that I had been using with him. I had no idea that I sounded that harsh. I mean, me listening back to myself, I was like, ooh, that was, oh my goodness. So, I was so sure that I was going to be right that I let him actually record that. Wow. It's hard to admit when you're wrong, because you do want to be right, because it appears to be a character flaw when you're not correct, right? But not being right all the time is not a character flaw. No one's going to be right all the time. which goes into the scripture that we're talking about today.
Mhm.
There's a portion of that. So you want to.
What says, command those who are rich in this present age not to be haughty, nor to trust in uncertain riches, but in the living God who gives us richly all things to enjoy. So we want to what?
Trust.
We want to trust in
The
what?
living God.
In not to trust in uncertain riches, but in the living God who gives us richly all things to enjoy. So I think again that's it's a rich scripture for us to get into, even though it's using the word rich over and over again. If it is that we're really looking at this, we can get puffed up about a lot of stuff.
That's what haughty means, by the way.
Right.
That's what haughty means.
Yeah, we can get puffed up and thinking, well, I'm the one that should be handling the money all the time because I'm the one that's smartest. I'm the one that you should be listening to me because I know what I'm talking about, you know. Or we should do it my way. I'm best at this, you know. So again, the challenge there is you're not necessarily seeking God who gives you what it is that you truly need. And what you wind up getting from God may not be what you thought you were going to get. So you have to open yourself up and humble yourself even to receive what he has for you because it's better for you.
I'm glad you said that because when we break this down, the first word that you see in there is command. What does it mean to command? And when you read that, you know, you're telling somebody with authority. And it's easy for us to do that. But one of the things that I think is difficult in our commanding is having people who want to receive, who will be humble. And we should be able to do that with each other.
Well, the challenge there, when you say command those who are rich, is that often when it is that somebody feels they are rich, they feel like, I don't need nothing else. You know, you gonna tell me something.
That's what we're talking about, that $1 million thing.
Yeah,
you know,
but
it's like money answers all things. It's like you think you can answer all things with money. People who seem to have all the money and have all the wealth, it's very hard to command them unless they humble themselves. We humble ourselves. With $1 million, do you think that we would be humble?
Well, again,
why is it difficult?
There are so many people that have where $1 million would seem like, yeah, that's what I used to buy my earrings yesterday. You know, that's not a whole lot of money. But on the other side, there are folks that'll look at $100,000 like $1 million.
$10,000, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm saying it depends on your existence, the way it is that you deal with things, as to how that $1 million is going to look for you. But beyond that, it's about just realizing, just because you may have that $1 million doesn't mean that you can't learn anything or that you don't need anybody else's input. Listen,
a lot of people believe that because you are rich, that means you know everything. That means that you're smart. Yeah. And a lot of people who have the wealth believes that you can't tell them anything because they said, if you were smart, you'd be rich like me.
Right.
And all of that stuff is fleeting. You know, people have gotten rich, like you said, with the lottery or whatever reasons.
Or inheritance, or maybe they did wind up with a great business that you know really worked out well and was very profitable. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're smart in everything. They were fortunate enough to be at the right place at the right time with the right product that ended up bringing in a lot of income. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're really smart when it comes to relationships.
Yeah,
that doesn't mean that they're really smart when it comes to understanding what you need and what you're about. And what makes you happy. And they may not even be concerned about that because they're so satisfied with the fact that they're rich.
Back into relationships. You may be in a relationship with someone who says, I have all the money, so you're supposed to do what I do. Or they're using the money to, you know, say that I should be the one who runs things in this family. And we need the scriptures. We need to deal with being commanded to do stuff because sometimes in our flesh, we just don't know how to behave. And so he says, what does it mean to be haughty? That's to be puffed up, to be arrogant, to think that you know everything. Have I been haughty? Yes, I have. I've been puffed up. I've been arrogant. I think since Christ, I'm a lot less of that, recognizing that even then it wasn't that I was so secure, but I felt that the need to build myself up because I was so insecure,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you can be arrogant and be insecure
Mm-hmm.
and puff yourself up as well.
And I've had some of that too as well. You know, since we want to be transparent
we,
here.
we be eating that same apple, don't we, baby? What are uncertain riches?
Well, riches that one, you don't know that they're going to be sustainable. Two, they may go up, they may go down. Um, they may provide what you need, maybe not. They might bring more trouble than they bring good. It's uncertain exactly what the riches are going to be. There have been folks that have won
Crypto.
the lottery and said it was the worst thing that happened to them because of all the things that followed behind them receiving that large sum of money.
Right. And it's not just about uncertain riches, is not just about that you might have money that you might lose. Uncertain riches is where you're putting your trust in those riches, something that really can't buy the things that you say you want. Money, is not just a cliche. Money cannot buy love. Money is not going to buy you happiness. It's going to give you temporary satisfaction. Of course, you'd rather have money than not. But if you put your trust and your faith in those dollars or in whatever you consider to be wealth, and not in the living God, which is eternal, then even if you don't have the money, you won't be afraid. One of the things that's really interesting to me is when you have a certain amount of money, it's hard for you not to have it. It's hard for you to imagine how you would live without it. It's like the more you have, the more you are risking, and you try harder to maintain that status. And let's see, I think someone had a comment here. We want to get to it. Let's see. Hold on. Oh, we had somebody say, I need GPS too. Okay. Okay. I think that was from earlier. And then let's see what else we have. What does it say?
This shows as much about trust and what is commanded where we're going. This shows us much about trust and what is commanded where we're going. Okay.
I think that's a good question. Where are we going? So true. So true. I think that we're not going to have time to go through all of the questions, but even though we're not going to have time to go through all of the questions, this is a very good time to remind you that coming up this weekend, this Saturday, we're going to have the Nichols.
Yep.
At 10 o'clock, because people have different times that they can join in.
That's on Saturday.
Yeah, on Saturday. We're going to start rebroadcasting some of our other broadcasts. And then this Monday, we have the Sloans. So we can still go through the questions. The other thing is that I encourage you to go to the website. And the website is www.idometoo.org. And there you can also see the assignments. So the assignments are available, and the questions. We encourage you so much as a couple to go through the exercise. It's going to help you to meditate, but also discuss the questions between yourself. And you're going to find that you're going to learn more. Hopefully, you're going to learn more about how your spouse thinks. There are other assignments too. We have Couples Challenge on the website.
We're going to get a little bit more into harmony as well. So when we were talking earlier in the program about the fact that we might explain things differently or just discuss things, or I should say approach things in a different way, we're going to talk a little bit more about that. We got some illustrations that we think would be helpful, especially for the discussions, that you're having with one another, so that we're not critical of each other. We're not actually thinking, this is the only way to do it. God really wants us to, as far as our existence is concerned, to value one another,
yes,
and truly appreciate one another. I know I did not recognize how much it is that I was operating as though what I thought and what I was saying was probably the best. That's what I was doing, and not really opening us up to explore and see what my spouse was gifted with as well. Both of us are gifted. There's no question about that. This is a very, very talented and gifted child of God that I appreciate the Lord giving to me. And her suggestions, even her approaches, are not necessarily things that I would have come up with, but I recognize the advantage in using both what I have and what she has, because we wind up going to some place that's actually better for both of us.
Absolutely. And with that, thank you so much for staying with us, for joining us. We do appreciate you taking the time. And hopefully it is helping you to build friends of your marriage. I was going to give them the last word.
Oh, okay. So Sandy says, some may trust in horses, some may trust in chariots, but we will trust in the name of our God.
Amen.
And that is so powerful there as well, because the reality of it is those other things are not going to last forever. They're not only going to change, but they're not going to necessarily satisfy you the same way all the time.
And our time is up. We're actually a minute.
Okay.
But again, thank you so much for joining us. Please make sure that you join us next time on Tuesday. Have something to write with. We're going to talk to you about the prizes and everything as
get a little deeper.
Our people do. Thank you for joining us again. Be blessed.
We had to travel the world of our past to realize it was harder before, cause we weren't by each other's side. Maybe it took a little longer to know together we're stronger. That's the way our love survived. Now we've gone through the fire. Love will take us higher, higher than it was before. We went through love and war. See the promised land, walking hand